educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank you very much for tuning in today. I have a special guest today. This gentleman today, he has read over 20 books per year, mostly in the genres of biography, autobiography, history, personal finance, business, and self-improvement. So he is a very well-rounded individual. He loves sharing what he learns with his clients, striving to pass on principles that have helped the most successful people in the world to become such. He is the owner of Unique Advantage and Fifth, an organization created for the purpose of training financial advisors to become principles-based financial planners. He is the creator of personal financial snapshot software and the principles-based planning process. He is also the author of Principles-Based Planning, a better approach to financial planning, and has been a certified financial planner since 2003, and he has been doing financial planning since 1999. I thank y'all very much for tuning in today. I bring none other to you than Kyle. Kyle, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about our conversation we're about to have.
I know, right? You know, I wish sometimes you could be in the green room with me and the guests, because we realize that we're kindred spirits. You know, I said, hey, let's act like we're sitting on the couch talking, right? Just having a Pepsi, right? And what does he pick up? A Pepsi. So and those of you who's been following, I love Pepsi for whatever reason. It's my downfall. But one of the things that Kyle, we want to talk about today is that why do most people fail when it comes to their finances? Why do most people fail?
I would say there's two reasons. One is, and it's not entirely their fault, it's the financial institutions, right? So financial institutions are in control of the narrative. They actually police the words that are allowed to be used in public in the financial services realm. And I don't think people really know that that's what's happening.
Wow.
And then I would say the second thing is, we have natural tendencies, right? We're kind of looking for the easy path, the easy button in life.
You're right.
And when something gets presented, especially from financial institutions, that says, hey, Maurice, instead of, working hard and starting a business and taking these chances, why don't you just send us money and we'll give you the same result? People push that button and they're like, okay, that's what I want. And it seems like the easy path, but I would say those are the two major reasons.
You made a statement about our financial institutions, any institution, right? Because we complain about our educational system and things like that. We don't learn that. And a lot of times, because we don't learn it overall, it doesn't start at home. So maybe, we may need to recreate an environment or improve the environment where we can talk about this more freely from the ground, or our base being at home.
Yeah, I agree. There's so behind me, you can see the portrait of Booker T. Washington. He's one of the great American heroes. His book, Up From Slavery, if anybody hasn't ever read that, is one of the best that I've ever read. It's awesome. But he said this, he said, nothing ever comes to one that is worth having except by hard work. And I think we've kind of lost that. We've kind of lost that drive to forge and pioneer and, do something different.
So, and I'm hearing what you're saying. I think because right now, for those individuals who are still working a 9-to-5, even if we have a coach as an entrepreneur, a lot of times people are saying duplicate what we're doing, right? So, because it actually gives the perception of the path is easier. That's the perception, right?
Right.
And so because we're trying to be copycats and not being our authentic selves, I think that hurts us in our work ethic and how we approach any situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that same mentality is why a lot of people choose poor investments,
Hmm.
right? Because they when they look at their 401k, let's say what they get
Hmm.
hired, they look at their 401k options, and what do they choose? They choose the ones that already did well,
Hmm.
right? They're like, oh well, last year that one did really well, so that's the one I'm going to choose. And all the research shows that that method of choosing
Hmm.
actually is the opposite. It's the opposite of what would actually lead to success. So, you got to think outside the box. You have to be willing to take a chance. I think that's really what the true American dream is
Hmm.
about, hey, I've got an idea and I can do it. Nobody's telling me I can't pursue that, right?
Hmm.
And so I think we need to kind of get back to that idea.
Well, how can I when it seems as though, there's nothing new underneath the sun? And so how do we duplicate what's already been done? It feels as though that, hey, i'm not I'm not the first one to get to it. So how can I break that cycle if that's the perception?
That's what it is, though. It's just a perception because Maurice and I are the same age. We were just talking about it, and I was
Hmm.
like, man, what have we seen since we graduated high school
Right.
that's come about, right?
Right.
That's new, that's changed. I mean, you probably never even thought you would have a podcast. That wasn't even a figment of your imagination
Not at
back
all.
then. Yeah. And,
Not at
and
all.
so here we are,
Right.
now we have the internet and now we have AI, right?
Hmm.
Here's the reality. There will be so much that changes in the next 10 years. So many things that we didn't even know existed. They
Hmm.
don't exist right now,
Hmm.
right? But they're going to exist. And why can't we be a part of that? Why can't we be part of that ingenuity and that innovation?
Well, I think in that, you know, uh, we're not teaching something like trades. Like we're not, again, like just stated, like we're not teaching base stuff. That we might have been taught, like you said back in the day. Class of '94, 90, whatever. So, um, back then we were taught how to work hard, to think outside the box a little bit more. To now there were some times where it's like, hey, we're preparing you just for you to go to work the 9 to 5. So
Mhm.
you weren't given that idea of being an entrepreneur, but it's to be that great employee that contributes to an organization and not always just the same old mundane type thing. So I think that's part of the issue. We're not being granted permission to think outside the box.
Right. Yeah. And I think we have to look at what is it that's encouraging us to just follow the crowd,
Hmm.
right? And what is the result? What's the result of where the crowd is headed?
Hmm.
I think if we can just pause and say, hey, where is this going? Where is everybody heading towards? And
Hmm.
do I really want to end up in that spot?
Hmm.
Because if I don't, then I got to make a change, right? I need to do
Hmm.
something different.
So how do we change the narrative for us to reach financial freedom if we haven't been taught the base? Our base don't know, to some degree,
Mhm.
haven't been given those opportunities. So where do we need to start so that way we can start to grow in this financial freedom mentality, especially since we hear it all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with exactly what you said. It's your mentality,
Hmm.
right? So we've been trained, we've been conditioned. Most people have heard of the study of Pavlov's dog, right? Well, that dog was conditioned, right? There was the ringing of the bell, and then okay, there's the food.
Hmm.
Ringing of the bell, there's the food, and then pretty soon the dog just salivates because the bell rings,
Hmm.
right? And so we don't realize that we're being conditioned all the time. Like we live in an era when we're being marketed more than any other people that have ever lived on the earth,
Hmm.
as far as constant marketing.
Hmm.
You pull up, you talk to your wife about doing something with the pool, right? And all of a sudden on all of your social media, there's pool stuff,
Right.
right?
You're right.
So we're constantly being marketed in the most sophisticated ways ever before. So we're being conditioned to not think for ourselves, but to think what we're being told to think. Okay. And so I think the first thing to think about is, what is it that I really believe? Do I believe, let's start with something that I think everybody agrees, which is anything free? Let's start with that principle or that idea. Is anything truly free? And I think most people would say, no, nothing's really free. And we have red flags. If somebody, I'm sure you've been on vacation places and people come to you and they're like, here's a free flower or here's a free bracelet.
Right.
And you're like, I know that something's up with this, right? So we have red flags that pop up. When it comes to finances, why don't those same red flags pop up when people say, hey, you can just send us money and we'll give you financial freedom one day in the future? We should have red flags that pop up and say, wow, nothing's really free. Nothing's really free. So it's really, what are our principles? What are the principles we really believe in? And we've got to apply those same principles to our money, because if we think that they're disconnected, hey, in all the rest of my life, I know that hard work, knowledge, sacrifice, all those things are principles that are going to be true on the rest of my life, but in money, I don't need to apply those. Of course they apply. Those same principles apply.
So here's the thing though, Kyle. I was not around anyone that had those principles in place for when it came to finances. Robbing Peter to pay Paul mentality. Lights being cut off, gas being cut off, whatever it might have been. So all of us have not had that experience. Where people, where we were born into money, right? So how do we pick up on those principles when all we're doing is duplicating what we've been able to see majority of our lives?
No, so the reality is by far the majority of Americans will never be financially free. And so that's probably one of the first things we should look at and say, hey, whatever the crowd's doing financially, that's not working. So I probably shouldn't copy them, right? I probably should, question what's happening. Again, question, where's this crowd headed? I would say that we can all start, our experiences is very myopic, right? Our experience is very short-sighted. It's very individualized, and we can't say, oh, well, just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist or doesn't mean it can't work, right? So I think reading frees us up. You mentioned how many books I read. If you, and I'm sure you've interviewed tons of highly successful people, guess what? They read. They read books. And we've got to get to that, because I think that opens up what is real to us or what's possible for us. I think that opens that up. One thing that totally had an influence in my life was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 1999, when I started my career in this business. And that book was written in 98. And it opened my eyes. I thought, of course, because I had that same experience where my dad was divorced many times as I was growing up, multiple times. If I told you the number, Maurice, you'd be shocked. But, and I saw him struggle financially. I saw most of the people I knew, money dictated their lives. It told them when they could be places, what they could do, when they could do it, how they could do it. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of opened that door and said, wow, there is a different way.
And a lot of times we don't take those stories that we've read and try to apply it and understand the principles, the morals, whatever it might have been in that, story. So when you think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, yeah, you're comparing kind of two dads, right? And where the gentleman is working, all that type of stuff, and sometimes we don't take what's really being said and apply it to our lives. So again, that's thinking outside the box, because I'm so caught up in my now, I'm not worried about what somebody else has done. So I think that's some of the roadblocks we have mentally. We can't, that we need to break down, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. I think one of my favorite books that I've read recently is Atomic Habits by James
Mm-hmm.
Clear.
Mm-hmm.
We're habitual creatures. We have neural pathways that we've developed that, think of it like a highway. The more we drive on it, the more it's like an easy path for us to go on. And those are what cause us to have these habits in our lives and
Right.
habitual thinking, right? The way we think about things. And so if we're going to cut a new path, it's like a whole new road, right? And we have to keep going on that road over and over again before it becomes a highway. And so I think it's repeated exposure to what's possible. There was a version of Alice in Wonderland that came out, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or something anyway. And at the beginning, she's talking, she's like, every day I start by thinking of 3 impossible things, right? And I love that. I love that idea of, thinking of what's impossible, because I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things that you and I use today that we would have thought was totally impossible.
Most definitely.
This kind of stuff, we would have thought that's not even possible, right? And now it's possible,
right?
Because somebody thought it was,
right.
And
so I just want to give you an idea what happened. Kyle picked up our cell phone, right? And so for those of you who are our age or a little older, do y'all remember that brick that used to be the cell phone? With that antenna that was like 3 feet long, so no, but you're right though. We did not think that was that was possible to have our phone. We felt great when we graduated to the beeper and the two-way. We thought we were doing something.
Yeah. When you had the CD player that you could run with, remember? That
right.
Skip.
And so now. Now you have headphones that are about the size of the moon, versus the little itty bitty ones that will break, So like you said, there are a lot of things that we have to be reconditioned to, and understand that, hey, the habits begins after day 21, even 90 for some of us, because we need to stay on top of it, right? So how do we create that type of habit that we can feel as though that we can still achieve our desired outcome? Because a lot of times that desired outcome looks so far away that we don't even want to create the habit, So how do we start? Where do we need to start off just to get to our destination?
Well, James Clear gives, and I'm sure I'm not going to remember all the aspects of what goes into creating and developing a habit, but part of it's the atmosphere, right? Part of it's who we're hanging out with and what we're choosing to listen to, what we're choosing to watch, things like that. That's all going to have an influence, right? It's kind of like an alcoholic, for example. Let's say they go to AA, right? And they get clean, and guess what? If they don't change their environment, what happens?
Right.
They go right back. They go right back to it. They have to change the environment. And that's one thing that we have more control over than we think we do. We can control, hey, I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to, exercise every day. I'm going to do this thing. And we have these great apps, there's one that I've got on my iPhone that's called Habit, and it tracks all these habits that I'm trying to develop. One is doing sit-ups every day. Seems ridiculous, right? But it's every day I want to do 60 sit-ups, right? And I've been doing it. And I checked the box, and now I'm in the habit of pulling that up and checking my habits.
Okay.
And my habits reinforce, right? So that's the thing that I think we can do. We can start there, and we can start little, right? That's the thing that Atomic Habits talks about, is an atom is the smallest particle, right? And so, but it's powerful. Think about the atomic bomb, right? It's pretty powerful. So those little things that we can do, just one little step, okay, I haven't read a book in years. Great. Make a goal. Read a book this year, right? A few years back, I I thought, I have such a difficulty writing in a journal, right?
Mm.
And I know
Mhm.
that a lot of successful people write in journals. They get ideas. It's a way to brain dump. It's a way to ponder and get inspired, right? And so I was like, I'm going to develop this habit. And I found this book in Barnes and Noble, and it made it so that I could write one sentence. There was only space for one
Mm.
sentence every day. I thought I can do that. If I can't write one sentence, then that's ridiculous. So I'm going to write one sentence every day. Guess what happened?
Mhm.
I couldn't just write one sentence. I was like, I got to write some more. So I'm like writing in the margins and stuff, but I did that for 3 years. I wrote every day, which is
Mm.
pretty cool.
And I'm listening to what you're saying. The first thing I want to touch on is there's a phrase, there's the breakfast table mentality, right? You're the sum of the five people that you eat breakfast with. And a lot of times we don't understand how important that breakfast table really is. Because if people are gossiping, you know, if they're tearing someone else down, if they're telling you that, hey, that will never work, hey, we can't get over our bills, those type of things. We don't understand how much that seeps into our psyche, and that holds us back. So that's one
Yeah.
thing, that I really wanted to touch on. The whole reading of the book thing for myself, I realized that, yes, I've been reading books, let's say over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been really pressing to read a book, right? But over the last 6 months, 7 months, I've been pressing to read books that are old, 1906, 1925. Oh, I can't remember the
Mhm.
lady's name. But I realized that the same principles have been spoken about all this time. Nothing has changed. It's just the viewpoint of someone else's, and you don't know what's going to be that one thing that's going to encourage you to get over the hump. So I think that's something very important because a lot of times, again, like you and I talk about this podcast, 20, 25 minutes, attention span, right? People don't have time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the attention span to sit down and read a book and allow their real imagination to work for them.
Yeah. I mean, it's something you have to exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like any muscle, right? If I want to, so first off, I couldn't go run 2 miles right now. It would kill
Mm-hmm.
me. But I can play pickleball for 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can do 60 sit-ups. And a lot of times for somebody that might be difficult. That might not be possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to work at that, and the attention span, like you're talking about, how long can you pay attention? How long can you focus?
Right.
And you can exercise that muscle and make it stronger.
So I think that's something that a lot of us need to really work on a little bit more is exercising that muscle because as you started off by saying all of us want it in quotations, all of us want it easy in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to understand that hey, getting to our destination, financial freedom, is going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no question. And unfortunately, we get sold this false idea, this false path that, oh, if you don't want to work, then here's the easy path. It doesn't exist. And we all know it. Like
Right.
if you asked 1,000 people, hey, does the easy path really exist? And they all say no, but we
Hmm.
still fall for it. We're still susceptible.
So Kyle, man, I appreciate you coming on today. But, where can they reach out to you, if they need that individual to help coach them through to create a better habit, to read more books, like, hey, you know what, that cheerleader say, hey, you can do it, type thing. So where can they reach out to you and talk to you about that?
Well, we all need support.
Hmm.
None of us make it alone, and that's the reality. We all need support. We all need that cheerleader, so to speak, or
Hmm.
whatever, right? That somebody who believes in us. And I really do. I believe in my clients. No matter where they start, I think that they can do it. I think that they can achieve financial freedom. So I would encourage them to go to our website, uniqueadvantage.biz. And I don't know, Maurice, if you can put that in the notes somewhere, but
Yes.
you can also find my book on Amazon if you just want to read about it first.
Hmm.
Principles-based planning is on Amazon. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, so you can find us there.
All right, cool. So, of course, Kyle, I try to put everybody's information in the show notes. So, just in case if you're driving, you're not by a pen and paper, or even if you're on your phone, you can't type in your notes. Of course, you can always go back to the show notes and click on the link. The link is always there. So, but Kyle, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Maurice. This is a huge privilege and honor.
Hey, thank you. No problem. No problem. So, but I have to ask you the question, man. I got to ask everybody. My would you rather question, right? So, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I like a fork in the road. I don't know. I think I like the life sometimes forces us to make a change, and we can't just keep going as is, status quo. So I think change forces us to grow and improve. So I like that.
Okay.
Fork in the road.
All right, cool. Like I said, it was no parameters, no psychology
I didn't
behind
get it wrong.
No, you did. Because everybody has their own version of it. I've had a few people that say, hey, they want the doors to be transparent. They envision the doors being red with white walls, or I want the fork in the road because there's going to be another fork in the road down the line. Those type of things. But maybe, you know what, like you said, we're the same age. Maybe you could help me out with this answer, though. There was one gentleman who came in and said, I don't like those 2 options. And, and he said that he preferred the Star Trek mentality, which is there are a plethora of options. And I cannot remember. And every time I sit down to go look for it, I get distracted. I can't remember. So do you know what he's referring to?
Is he talking about a warp? Like going through a warp tunnel?
No, it was I can't remember the episode either. But it was because that whoever it was, they were presented with 2 options, and they said no, there's more than those 2 options. There's a plethora of options. It just depends on which way you want to go. So I have to write it down, put it in highlights. That reminds me of
Alice in Wonderland also. Your audience is going to be like, man, he's really stuck on Alice in Wonderland. I'm not. No, but there is a part of Alice in Wonderland where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat, right? Mm-hmm. The Cheshire Cat says, hey, where do you want to go? Or she asked the Cheshire Cat, which way should I go? Mm-hmm. And he says, well, where do you want to go? Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't know. And then he says, well, it doesn't matter which one you choose then. So maybe that's what he's talking about. There's a lot of different options. It just just depends on where you want to end up. Where do you want to end up?
Right. And within that decision, there's going to be another decision before you get to where you're trying to get to. So, a lot of us don't understand that part. Like, we think that, hey, we're going to make this one decision. It's going to be easy, right? And we're going to get there. No, we got too many other roadblocks along the way. Yep. But Kyle, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. And thank y'all very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. And I will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?